Good morning, my dear kids. Welcome in Social Studies class. Today we are going to read chapter number 16, Development of Transport. Class, traveling is an important part of our lives. We travel to many places every day. We go from one place to another for work, to attend birthday parties, marriages, and other functions, or to see new places. Did you know the early man did not have any means of transport? He had to carry his things himself. Then he tamed some animals. He used these animals to ride and carry his loads. He used donkey, oxen, yak, camels, horses, and even dogs. You have learned in earlier classes how early men invented the wheel. The invention of wheel made a significant, or you can say important, change in his life. He made round pieces of tree trunks which could easily move even on rough land. He used wheel to make a cart. Initially he pulled the cart, later he used animals to pull it. Now it helped him to travel and carry his loads from one place to another. Now come to the chapter. We have come a long way since the days when animals and sledges were the only means of transport. Let us talk about the ways in which we travel the transport goods today and the things that have made these possible. Sledge is a vehicle that has long narrow strip on which it moves. Did you remember the topic, the wheel, of your previous class? Take a look. Humans saw that things like logs and round stones rolled easily. So they started moving heavy loads by placing them on logs. They also moved things on sledges. They found that it was easier to move a sledge placed on logs. By shortening these logs, humans made wooden wheels. Later, they learned to fix the wheels to the sledge. Okay. Roads and vehicles. Wheel. To invent means to make something new. The first big invention in the world of transport was the wheel. Carts and carriages with wheels made traveling and carrying goods a lot easier and faster. Even today, most vehicles have two or more wheels. Class, carriage is also a synonym of cart. It is a vehicle with wheels that is pulled by animal. Okay. Now next is motor vehicles. In the beginning, cars ran on steam. The first of these were built around 250 years ago. They were heavy and slow. Then around 1885, two Germans, Karl Benz and Gottlieb Daimler, working separately, made motor cars. These ran on petrol. Carl Benz was an engine designer and Gottlieb Daimler was an engineer and industrial designer. They both work on motor car but separately. Separately means not together. Heavy vehicles like trucks came a little later after the diesel engine was invented by another German, Rudolf Diesel. Now there are cars that run on electricity and hybrid cars that run on a fuel like petrol as well as on electricity. Electric cars and hybrids are less polluting than diesel or petrol cars. Now, next is roads. In the early days, roads were just tracks made by the movement of animal and peoples. These tracks were not good enough for the movement of carts and carriages. So people started covering roads with bricks or stones. Later, they made metal roads which have a smooth top layer of crushed stones or stone chips held together with tar. Today we also have concrete roads. Class, metal is basically a pakka road And concrete is a building material made by mixing cement, sand, stone chips, and water. But tar is not included in this. Do you know how long does a concrete road last? Concrete roads have a long service life of 40 years. Moreover, during this service life, concrete roads do not require frequent repair or patching work like metal roads. Okay. Now next is Indian roads. India has a long history of roads. The cities of the Indus Valley and roads paved with bricks some 4500 years ago. We already read about Indus Valley in third class. Many rulers down the ages built and maintained roads. The greatest of these roads was perhaps the one built by Sher Shah Suri around 450 years ago. It ran from Peshawar in Pakistan, to Sonargaon in Bangladesh. The present Grand Trunk Road is a part of this road. Grand Trunk Road, we also call this GT Road. Today, India has one of the largest networks of roads in the world, but most of the roads connecting villages are not metalled. It means they are kacha roads. They become muddy during the rainy season and are not fit for heavy vehicles. This makes it difficult for farmers to take their crops to the markets. The state capitals and other big cities are connected by broad metal roads called national highways, while the big towns of each state are connected by state highways. These are needed for transporting goods over long distances and for the development of industries. Now, railways. Railways are tracks laid out for the movement of carriages or wagon. Wagon is an open section of a railway train that is used for carrying goods or animals. About 2500 years ago, Greece had stone tracks for the movement of wagons. The Romans too cut tracks into stones for the movement of wagons, but railways as we know them today would not have come into being without the invention of the locomotive. Locomotive is an engine of a train. Locomotive is a powered railway vehicle used for pulling train. It is an engine of a train. Locomotive. A machine that uses the power of steam to do work is called a steam engine. Many people made steam engines about 300 years ago, but the person who made them better and more useful was James Watt of Scotland. Early steam engines were used to pump water and make things in factories. In the 1800s, steam engines were used to make the first locomotives in England. A locomotive made by George Stephenson pulled the first public passenger train in the world. Soon, railways started being laid all over the world. The steam locomotive later gave way to diesel and electric locomotives. Now, Indian Railways. In India, the first train carrying people steamed from Mumbai to Thane in 1853. Soon, railways were laid in other areas. And now, India has one of the largest railway networks in the world. Almost all parts of the country are connected by railways. Broadly speaking, trains in India are of two types: passenger trains, which carry mainly people, and goods trains, which carry goods such as grains, ores, coal, cement, fertilizers, and oil. Some trains are slow moving, stopping at many stations along the way. They are usually called passenger trains in which we travel. The faster trains, which stop only at some stations, are called express trains like the Rajdhani Express and the Shatabdi Express. This is all about your land transport. Okay? Now we have more two transports: water transport and air transport. So, water transport. It needs much effort to pull heavy object on land. But if the same object is floating in water, it will be very easy to move it. The early man must have noticed this thing, so he invented the boat. The early boats were very simple. They were simple tree trunks tied together, but slowly man made many different kinds of boats. We have now boats that are very big and are driven by engines. Okay? Oars and sails were early inventions that speeded up water transport. Oars have a flat blade at one end and used for rowing. And sail is a large piece of strong material that is fixed onto a ship or boat. The wind blows against the sail and moves the ship along. Okay? It is not easy to say when these were first used, but historians have found proof of sails being used at least 7,000 years ago. From the until steam was used to drive ships, sailing ships and galleys. Galleys ships driven mainly by rowing remained the only means of crossing the seas. Now steamship. The steam engine led to the development of boats and ships driven by steam. About 200 years ago, and for about 150 years, steamboats and steamships were widely used for fishing, transporting goods and passengers, and in wars. During this time, ships went through another change. They started being made of iron and steel because wooden ships caught fire easily during wars. After steamships came modern ships driven by diesel and other kinds of oils. Now, Indian shipping. India has a long history of shipping. The people of the Indus Valley sent ships to other countries and had a fine port in Lothal in Gujarat more than 4,000 years ago. After that, many kingdoms down the ages had the trade links across the seas. Some even had navies for fighting wars at sea. Now, India has many ports which are mostly used for trade with other countries. Ships are used to transport goods because water transport is cheaper and because heavy goods are usually not carried by air. No one travels by ships anymore except for short trips. For example, from Kochi to the Lakshadweep island or from Kolkata to the Andaman island. Okay, now next is your air transport. Air transport is the fastest means of transport. The earliest air travel was in hot air balloon. A gas balloon rises because it is filled with a gas that is lighter than air like hydrogen or hot air. Hot air balloons with a basket for carrying people were the earliest means of flying. After balloons came large oval gas filled airships. Unlike balloons, airships could be steered. Steered means run or move. But they were not very safe for passengers as they often broke up or caught fire. Now, the only kind of airship that is used is the blimp for advertisement. Only for advertisement, okay? The first aeroplane was made in December 1903 by two American brothers called Orville and Wilbur Wright. They also known as Wright brothers. It was made of wood and canvas and flew just 120 feet on its first flight. 4 years after this, a Frenchman called Paul Cornu made the first helicopter. In another 60 years or so, traveling by air became quite common. The best thing about air transport is, of course, speed. Planes carry people, cargo, and letters across the world in a matter of hours. It means very fast. Helicopters can go to places that are difficult to reach, like areas hit by floods or landslides. They take food and other supplies for soldiers in battlefields and high mountains. Now, air travel in India. Air travel is increasing in India. Almost every large city has an airport. India has a number of airlines that run domestic. Domestic means within a country, and international flights. Okay, air travel is very comfortable. It also saves a lot of time, but it is quite expensive. Okay, this is all about air transport, and your chapter is over. We read in this land transport, water transport, and air transport. Please read the chapter, fill the bookwork. I will send the bookwork in the evening. Okay, bye, take care.